You guys have video permission, so like you can turn on your video
Not
now.
me at least.
Okay,
Yeah, mine-
you
No worries,
in your
Castle, no worries.
case. Yeah,
But there's no need for me then.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, now
Can
we're
you-
missing Brendan, Castle. Castle, if you don't want to, no worries. Like,
No, I mean like I can't stream, but I can't like turn on my camera. But if that's not needed, then that's fine.
no worries, no worries, no worries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool. That's not important.
No, well, we need. Well, Brendan, just set yourself up. No worries.
Mhm.
And then I don't know. Shall we start? I need screen
Yeah.
sharing ability for later. So Scott says me that she needs screen sharing ability.
Okay. Hold on. Let me just fix up that part of the role. Share. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, setting
Video,
channels up in
speak,
Discord is just terrible.
soundboard, external. Yeah, voice activity.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Someone
he
says,
should
can
have
we ask?
permission. Should have permission to screen share as well. Since he has permission to video.
Someone says
Nope.
here that can we ask questions here in chat?
No?
No, you can chat about it, but the questions
Uh,
are already done here, and we picked some. Well, Scott picked some, so we're going to be very organized. If we go by the chat, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be like spam, 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 spam. You know, it's hard to keep up. So, okay, so I guess we're starting. This is the
wait.
second edition.
Oh wait, can you check if you have screen share permissions? Just to be safe,
don't.
I'm gonna manually give you permissions. Real quick. Where is it? So, Black Box Veteran. View. Invite, connect, video. Meet members.
Yeah, I don't know why people's asking like to join in the conversation. Like, you are not
Yeah.
part. You are
Now do you
disrespecting
have
us.
permission?
Nope.
I manually no.
I think he
Discord.
should. I think he should
Uh,
have.
yeah, he
have
should have. It's in the bottom of the.
Yeah. No, I have the video one that works. And next to it is screen, but that's still grayed out.
Well, that's weird.
Huh.
This app is really terrible. I swear. I can share my screen, but that should be a permission for everyone.
Yeah,
don't
I
get it.
gave the role of permission. That's confusing me as well because by now he should have permission to screen
Alternate,
shared.
Scott, if you want to share something, like you can just like either send it to Clubsport or me, and then we screen share if that's fine for you. But
Actually, can I put a PDF in the channel?
it's gonna
Uh,
get lost with the messages. It's gonna
Uh,
blow up.
You can put it in the DMs that we have. You can slide it in there.
Yeah,
Then we can share it. Yeah.
Maybe I'll send you the link and you can share it, and then I'll just read through it and tell you when to go to
Ye-
the next slide.
Yeah, that sounds like a
Yeah,
good
sure.
solution. Mhm.
Yeah,
cool.
that's good.
Okay, so let's open up. Here's welcome everybody. Here's the second developer AMA we hold here at RNFS. I'm joined here with Clubsport, with Castle, and here is the Black Box developers. I'm gonna let them to introduce themselves. So, developers, please introduce yourselves to the RNFS audience, which is pretty cool.
Yes. Who would like to go first?
Let's go with age first, Russ.
Oh, funny. All right. Well, I was a Need for Speed developer for, geez, I don't know. I want to say from 2001 to 2005. So I was on Hot Pursuit 2, Underground 1 and 2, and a tiny portion of Most Wanted before I moved on. Before that, I was BioWare and Baldur's Gate and MDK2. And these days, I'm on Hogwarts Legacy for Avalanche.
Nice.
Impressive resume.
I guess I'm the next youngest. I started at EA in 1988, so a long time before you guys were even born. I got to work with Peter Molyneux on Populous 2 and Powermonger, and then I moved to California. I was supposed to work on the first FIFA, but somehow I ended up on NHL. Did that from NHL 94 to 98. So that includes the one that was in the Swingers TV show, the movie. And then in 99, I moved to Vancouver and I worked on Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed, the PC version, not the other one. And then the internal team at EA Canada started work on 007 Agent Under Fire, and Black Box was brought on board to do Hot Pursuit 2, the PS2 version, and EA Seattle took the assets and did something with them. It's not really the same game, so that should answer a lot of questions. They got the stuff. We didn't control what they did with it. What you see is what they came up with. And then after Hot Pursuit 2, luckily Black Box then did all of the versions of Underground 1, which I got to work on. And then 16 years of way too much crunch, I disappeared and went to Australia after that. I got to work on Avatar: The Last Airbender. You know, the one on the Xbox where you could get all the gamer points in like 3 minutes? That's me. Actually, that's Microsoft's fault. They couldn't decide how to do it, so we just went, fuck it, we'll just do it this way. I then worked at THQ, and I was there when they shut down 9 studios in one day. So if you're wondering how bad the industry can be, it was pretty bad in 2008 too. Then I went over to a racing game again. I did Race Room Racing Experience, which is a pure sim racing game where people wear gloves on their steering wheels and they have pedals and stuff. It's very difficult, very challenging, and I didn't win a race ever. And then after that, I went down to Ubisoft and worked on For Honor, which is really cool. And then I did Off the Grid, which is a Web3 thing with Neil Blomkamp, the movie director. And right now, between that, I did an Auto Legends thing that kind of went in, got the project out, and then disappeared again. And right now I'm working on something not car related, but my personal project is, and I will explain what that is later. Brendan,
Nice.
who are you?
Hi, I'm Brendan.
Nice.
I started on Hot Pursuit 2 as a junior artist. I was at EA previously in QA for a few years, and I did do art at QA. I did some hits on FIFA, and I did all the heads for NBA Live 2001, which was a PlayStation 2 launch title. So far back I go, not as far back as these old parts though. Worked on Need for Speed from 2001 until I shipped Most Wanted. I worked on Carbon briefly, but honestly, by then I had checked out. I'd left and joined Russ with his new company. Russ and I worked together probably until almost a decade. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, so I ended up going to United Front Games for 4.5 years, which was started by ex Black Box owners. They left after 5 years with EA and started United Front Games. I was at United Front Games for, as I mentioned, 4.5 years on Sleeping Dogs, True Crime Hong Kong, which turned into Sleeping Dogs. Shipped that, and then I worked on. I was a director on Tomb Raider. After that, I worked on NHL briefly. I did all the jumbotrons for NHL 15, which was the first licensed arenas NHL. Most of that artwork is still in the game 11 years later, or whatever it is. That's kind of cool. But then I moved to Montreal. Ubisoft wanted me to come work there. So I worked in the tech group, but I only worked on Rainbow Six Siege, built all the destruction systems for. I'm not an engineer, but I'm an artist, but tech artist. But I was the only artist on the destruction systems for Rainbow Six. So I don't know if anybody plays Siege, but most of that stuff's still mine. Then I left there, joined an indie company. That didn't work out, and then I was on Dead by Daylight for a few years. I led the mobile launch for Dead by Daylight, and then I led the next gen launch for Dead by Daylight on PS5 and Xbox X. Then I left there to be a director on another company for a couple of years. That didn't work out, and then I left there and worked with Leslie Benzies of Grand Theft Auto fame and his new company, Build a Rocket Boy, on Mind's Eye, which was the worst game of 2025, unfortunately. And that's a good accolade. And now I'm back. I work back, and I was the only employee in Canada for them, so I left them in March 2024, and now I just work for a local studio, so which is called High Dive. And
I would like to mention, to this day, Brendan had the best portfolio video I've ever seen.
And the
In a
worst.
video. Well, no, it was the worst. It entertained us.
No,
and it,
okay. No, you told me. Let's tell a quick story. He told me at one time in my life, my demo reel. So when I briefly moved to Edmonton when I was like 19 or something. I don't know what the hell I was doing. That's what you do when you're a kid. With a friend of mine. We were only there for a month in the middle of winter, and I delivered my portfolio to Bioware at the time, which, unbeknownst to me, right, I didn't know Russ at the time, viewed that demo reel, which was a terrible portfolio. It was awful. And then a couple of years later, Russ ended up at Black Box. Through a connection of mine, I delivered my portfolio to Black Box. And Russ did tell me at one point, I remember it was the worst demo reel and the best demo reel he's ever seen. The first one being the one I delivered in Edmonton. I don't know if you remember that, Russ, but it was pretty rough.
Yeah, but that was a much different one than you delivered to Black Box. That one you delivered to Black Box was classic.
It's still online somewhere, but it's very embarrassing because it's very old.
Well, if you want to share it with the public later, you're free to do so. We're free to find it out, and then we can all laugh together, or just like, yeah, cool, this is interesting.
Let's see if I can still
Um,
find it.
well, nothing in life is terrible. Anyways, so I got here the questions that Scott picked. Anyone can answer. Anyone from the team can answer. They go from Porsche Unleashed up to Underground, and then we can, like, when the Underground questions stop, we can move on to the AMA here in the channel. So the first question over here starts by Noob Solid 26. He says, I noticed that the PlayStation 2 version of Hot Pursuit 2 has one additional desert location named Outback, which didn't appear in any other version. I always wonder why it never appeared anywhere other than the PS2 release.
Yeah, I kind of answered that earlier, where we literally gave them everything. What you got was whatever they managed to get into their game.
Yeah,
Like
Black Box only ever worked on the PS2 version, and then we would give off everything that we made to the to the Seattle team, and they just did whatever they wanted with it, which was not nearly the same as the PS2 version.
Yeah, it's a different physics model as well.
All right.
Cool.
So there's the one that Noob Solid also asked, but I'm gonna leave that for the end because it's a really important one. It says Little Jinx. They asked, at what point did you guys decided to shift the franchise focus from exotic cars to tuners in order to start the development of Need for Speed Underground? Did EA consider any potential complications with the fans of the franchise on how drastic the change was for the series after Hot Pursuit 2?
And the answer to that one is the Fast and the Furious caused the problem. When the movie came out, it wasn't a huge success. The tuner market wasn't big. And when marketing goes, it's not big. It's based upon magazine subscriptions. But when Fast and the Furious went to DVD, there was $100 million worth of sales. So it was obvious that was the direction that we should be going. And I'd already pitched basically that game, but it got given to Seattle for some whatever reason. But then when they closed Seattle, it came to Black Box. I remember the meeting where they brought in all the art boards and everything. I'm going, hey, cool, my game's back. And that's pretty much it. Fast and the Furious, blame that movie. But it was cool. Like Vancouver had a tuner show while we were developing it stuff, and Brendan kind of had a tuner car, although he won't admit it. It's a Mazda 3.
No, I super had it was not a Mazda 3, first of all. Second of
Wasn't?
all, no. And
That was a Mazda 3.
yeah, it was a tuner car for sure. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
driving around in my cool little orange car at 20 years old or whatever it was.
Right. And I'm doing an underground game, and I'm driving a 1969 Dodge Charger. So it
Was
was
that what that
not
was?
my...
Didn't you had a TT at some point? I remember the TT.
Yeah, I bought a TT as well, but eventually I was driving the Charger around most of the time. The first gen TT was a great car. I missed that one a lot.
On a side
So
note, I saw
cool.
Zim's eyes light up when 1969 Dodge Charger got mentioned.
No, Scott also shared pictures of that Charger, like these gigantic cars. Like imagine pulling it at the office on EA and just this Charger over here. Beautiful, beautiful.
Mhm.
It says, what was the process like for choosing a hero car for the games? What kind of criteria did the cars have to meet in order to end up on the cover or become the main focus feature main vehicle? It's like, what was the criteria?
The hero cars were literally just like, which ones do we want to make cool? Like there was no rhyme or reason, there was no license or request or anything like that. And then the cover car was picked by marketing. We don't get a say in that. But I remember having to create the screenshot for the box. That's actually the image that you're seeing is actually a render from the PC version of Need for Speed Underground, where it renders the screen out at a massive resolution, like poster size. We had a little tool to do that. It took ages to take the screenshot.
Yeah,
Choco share.
considering the hardware at the time, it's like the processing all the image just kills the average
just render.
computer grade.
You press a button going, I like that square, and then he went away and came back an hour later and see if it was any good.
Days, it was painful.
Well, interestingly, though, at Black Box, we had a couple of genius engineers that had basically figured out how to backward engineer, take apart PlayStations, GameCubes. What am I missing, Coho? But they were able to take apart, PlayStation 1 and build dev kits out of retail PlayStations, GameCubes, all of that stuff, which was incredibly helpful. And after EA bought us, well, that had to come to an end because, that obviously had licensing issues with Sony. But it was pretty incredible to have every developer having a dev kit on their desk because at the time they were like 35 grand. So
yeah,
that was very good for Black Box.
I had to record the best lines for Hot Pursuit 2. So I would have a laptop, a PS2, the network adapter, and then just some software. And literally that was my test kit. It was just a PS2 with a network adapter in the back. And when EA purchased them, we basically went to Sony and said, hey, we're doing something. And they went, wow, that's really cool. We'll do that too. So we didn't really get into trouble. We knew that people would do it anyway. So they just decided to be nice about it. So it helped them out eventually. But yeah, Russ understates how smart the Black Box engineers were. They were the cream of the crop as far as I was concerned. And they worked really well together. I feel bad for the GameCube guy, though, because that was the worst one. Mostly because
I would comment further on that. In my experience at most game studios, the groups that stick together are usually by discipline, whereas, the engineers are all kind of a little team on their own, and then the character artists and blah, blah, blah. But at Black Box, it was kind of more the department. So if there was the front end, then you would have the front end engineers, artists, and designers were kind of that clique. So it was much different than any other environment I've been in. That was another kind of Black Box sort of specialness that I still haven't seen replicated anywhere else.
Yeah, I was a producer, but I was sitting with the track artist because I was working on tracks most of the time. I'm like, well, why would I sit anywhere else? I don't want to go sit by the management. That's boring. I sat next to Wes, my track guy, Australian. Cool dude.
Best ribbon man in the game.
Anyways, that's cool. That's cool insight, honestly. It's pretty insane. Says some more questions. Says this is more for Most Wanted developers. Says considering how ambitious Most Wanted was, and if it was true that the development began right after the first Underground was finished, what stories or anecdotes could you share about ideas for the game that just were never end up materializing that we might not know? Not necessarily cut content, but discussed concepts inside Black Box that were discarded before even they became a concrete part of the project.
That would be down to you, Russ. Any stories from Most Wanted from the time you worked on it?
Well, I can tell you it was Most Wanted that was the final linchpin in a handful of us leaving. And the whole need for slow button was kind of the clincher right there. Because they had that slow motion button, which to many of us was kind of counterintuitive to the entire white knuckle speed that Need for Speed had always been known for. And that kind of turned into a sour mark for a bunch of us. That's about the only story I got.
Cool.
Yeah, so like that famous speed breaker mechanic is, basically like essentially one of the breaking points, I assume. It's like there were so many people who are, even to this day, they're still debating on like about speed breaker and now how, like, why are you using speed breaker? Like don't use it, or like only use it on roadblocks, or like it's still going on to this day. And it's kind of surprising that you also had this sort of conversation even before the game came out.
As I
Oh
said,
yeah,
someone in the
absolutely.
chat.
Because,
No, no, no.
oh, go
Continue
ahead.
on. Continue on. No, 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 no. Continue on. Continue on.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, it was a big point of contention because what most of us loved about Need for Speed was you almost felt out of control, especially once you had a real kick-ass car. You almost felt out of control at times, like with how fast you were going and all that stuff. And then to add this button that slows down time was just, it was really offensive to some of us.
So Pursuit
That's
Breaker was massively hated.
that's a good answer for the next question too. Then, did the team face any problems? Yeah, there's one of them right there.
Yeah, it says exactly like you said. It says one last question from this user: did the team face any major problems during the development of each of those games? And then, are there any stories that you remember that significantly affected the development? And how did you manage to solve them?
They quit. I don't think that's a solution, but that's how they solved it.
Well,
That's probably the
we quit on Most Wanted, and that was one of a handful of things that forced us to feel that way. But no, on the Hot Pursuit 2 and Undergrounds, the conflicts that we had, they were, I mean, they were actually healthy conflicts, though. I would say that, with the exception of how much hours we were putting in and the different personalities, I'd say things went pretty smoothly for the most part. Like lots of discovery. The problem was we were inventing things without a time frame to do it. Like we basically had 9 months for both games to have them basically complete. So that those were the only real struggles. And then not to mention, all of a sudden EA is pouring people onto our team, but it worked out okay for at least Hot Pursuit and Underground 2. That was fine. A little friction, but it was good.
a good team can overcome friction, but eventually it will burn you out and you'll leave.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Migoid, or whatever your name was, because I forgot your pronunciation, he asked, how was working with your own engine for the Need for Speed games? And was it really called Speed Eagle? Like, what was the real name of it?
Brendan, what was the engine called? Russ? Was it just
Speed
EA
Pipeline.
Speed Pipeline?
Speed
Yeah.
Pipeline.
From my point of view, is Speed Pipeline. That's all that was.
Well, that
I mean,
was the name.
there was, yeah, there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. I don't think it's just like, okay, and
Yeah,
I mean, if
all the tools were theme named. Like all of the artist tools were theme named after candy. So we had like Jolly Rancher and geez, I forget a couple of the other ones. And then all of the programmer tools were named after cookies. So there was some thought put in there, just not in the name of the actual engine.
It reminds me of one setting of BLTED, which is exactly it's called acid emitters. And so, is any word about that? About the acid emitters?
which project's that on?
No, most wanted. I think many of the black box games have like reference to other kind of substances, not just candy and cookies. It's like, we play it cool.
That's the first time I've heard that term, but I mean, it's been 20. What years is 20 years since I've heard acid emitters. I mean, that'd be on the VFX side. I mean, Russell was a seasoned dev when he joined Black Box. I think Russ worked on, God, everything: lighting, VFX, art, artistic direction, technical art direction. So I guess Russ, you might have more insight on that if you worked with acid emitters. It also might come. It might also come from like another EA project. When they move some tech over, it could have been something used on like EA Canada.
Yeah, because like at BioWare, we built our own particle systems and all that stuff and lighting systems. And I brought a lot of that knowledge onto Need for Speed and had guys like Arn and Martin and Chris build all that stuff into the Need for Speed effect system. And I never stayed around to see the integration of EA's stuff into the Speed pipeline. I only was ever on Speed pipeline.
Cool. I guess everyone in the chat, everyone who ever saw someone calling it Eagle, you can finally correct them. It's Speed Pipeline. Speed Pipeline. No more Eagle bullshit. Okay. Second question. Do
Well,
you
I think sorry.
personally?
Let me just chime in real quick. I think Eagle is in regards to EAGL, which I think is the rendering pipeline of
Yeah.
EA.
Yeah,
It
I
wasn't.
think it's
It wasn't the speed development pipeline.
yeah, it's like there's a lot of debate about that over the years. It's like because the executables are named Speed, so like people assumed it's called Speed, but like it's a common thing that was like, oh, from back in the day, it's called EAGL. It's like thanks for debunking everything, I
Yeah.
guess, because like that's been another major point of topic within the Need for Speed community for like so many years.
Yeah. This kills the Need for Speed theories, and the Mystery City nonsense. Okay. So this Migo keeps asking, and this goes for everyone. Do you personally know? Do you guys personally know any of the creative directors of, well, Porsche Unleashed, Hot Pursuit 2, Underground 2, Most Wanted?
Yeah. Well, the answer is there wasn't a creative director. There were no game designers. EA didn't have game designers. So if you want to consider who the creative director is, that's me. But my title was senior associate producer. I designed and produced the games.
What was the
EA
question
didn't.
again? Sorry.
The question was, do they know the creative directors on Porsche, Hot Pursuit, Underground? We didn't have creative directors. We had art directors and audio directors, but there were no game designers, so there were no creative directors. We had executive producers that came up with ideas, but they're still producers. It's different now, though.
It is different now. Yeah, even like tech art didn't exist back then. I mean, Russ introduced me to tech art, which wasn't even a thing. But Russ was essentially our technical. He was our art director and our technical art director. But there was no such thing as technical art really at the time.
Yeah. The titles didn't really represent what they did. Well, the title represented what they did. So it was just car artists, even though one of them would actually do the technical part of having to make the roofs go up and down in Porsche. So technically, he's a technical artist. But back then, we just called them car artists. Everyone is all more, about their title actually representing what they do, as opposed to back then, it was just what they did.
There were also many hats worn by many people. Like you weren't just a producer, Scott. You were beyond a producer. Coho, you weren't just a modeler artist. You were beyond that as well. Like everybody on that team, most people on that team wore many hats.
Yeah, we had to in 9 months. We didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I ended up doing a lot of collision work, like behind the scenes work. I built a helicopter. I don't know. Everybody remembers the helicopter from Hot Pursuit 2, PS2.
Yes, the one that throws missiles at you.
I think Russ did the missiles. Because I don't know. Does it still have the happy face at the end? At the end of the missile? I can't remember.
It absolutely does have that.
That's awesome.
Who did
someone
the
gets the texture. Someone
Then
can
when
get the texture.
you have the end of the missile, it has a happy face.
Hey,
Which, by the way, you can outrun in reverse if you play your cards right. You can outrun the missile in reverse and get a good look at that happy.
Yeah. Hey, who did the forest fire in Hot Pursuit 2's Parklands? The deer that runs. Yeah, see?
I did. Yeah, that's me. And the rubber boot. Did anybody ever find the rubber boots?
No. There's so many Easter eggs that we're just finding out.
So we had this thought. I think it was me and Coho having the conversation about how you're driving down a highway and there's always just a random shoe or a boot on the road. Well, we need that. So we put they'll usually just be on the shoulders or just inside the bushes. There's probably on every map, there's probably a half a dozen rubber boots in there that you can find easily.
I mentioned earlier we were in a conversation that at one point I had taken my head from my demo reel and put it on a stake in the Tiki Village, and I guess ESRB stepped in and said, you can't be rolling the decapitated head down the road, so we had to pull it out. But I remember the boots and the tents. You could hit the tents in the forest. I think. Could you not?
Yeah, yeah, you could.
Yeah, we had
And
some climbing.
you remember what the forest was originally called, Brendan?
God, I have no idea.
Well, they poo-pooed that one. It was originally called Morningwood.
Oh yes. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
The morning wood
No,
forest. Come on.
my God.
We have fun when we do the crunch.
That is one crazy development team. Well, but I want to add something for Hot Pursuit too. Didn't you, Scott, mention that they also had Hometown from Need for Speed 3 running in it, or who was it?
Yeah. Hey, Russell, you know when we came over to see you guys in the very beginning, didn't you have a version of Hometown running on PS2? Like you literally just ported that track, or am I just
Yeah.
making that shit up?
No, pretty much. I mean, we did all sorts of crazy stuff. Even at one point, I remember when the SSX guys came over and were bragging at the size of their world. I actually took the entire SSX mountain and integrated it into Underground just to show that you drive by that entire mountain in less than 30 seconds of Underground. Just to show that your world is nothing compared to ours, which was fun. We had a very healthy rivalry with the SSX team. We loved those guys. We actually traded stuff back and forth when it came to technology and all that stuff and world building. So it was a healthy relationship, but they were a little too braggy about thinking their world was pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to brag out. Well, next question says DIW NFS. Do you believe that all the work you have created represents the best possible outcome in the area you have targeted?
Yeah. It's as good as you can get in 9 months, pretty much. 9 months with Black Box is 2 years with another developer.
Mm.
Like, especially when we're crunching. Like when you just have the right team, things work. And Black Box is one of them. One of the best things
And
about
then,
working in industry is just that you meet people that are genuine and honest, and you just become friends with them. I haven't seen Russ since we stopped working on Underground. I've seen
but now
Brendan
talking,
two times
but
in the
now
last
talking
20.
to you, Scott, it's like we just talked last week.
Yeah, it really sure is. Oddly enough, I was in the UK last week. I met up with a guy. The last time I saw him was 11 years old when he went to secondary school and I went to grammar school. I haven't seen him for 44 years. And it was literally like, "You're a car dealer?" And he's like, "Yeah." And how'd you know? I'm like, "Dude, we were friends when we were kids. I knew exactly what you wanted to be." And it was literally just, it's like I hadn't not seen him for the last 40 years. We just started to talk about everything. And the games industry is the same way. You make really good friends. And you also figure out who you don't trust.
I mean, Scott and I were not close during Need for Speed. You know, Scott was a lot more mature than I was. I was a young, stupid kid, and I was very anti EA for several reasons. I admit that. I'm not anymore. I mean, I grew up, whatever. But Russ and I are very close, though. Russ and I would regularly cuddle up under the desk and sleep many nights. That's not true, but we do. We are very close. Russ is one of the best mentors anybody could have ever had. He was one of my, one of the father figures in my life. So we don't talk much anymore, unfortunately. But Scott and I reconnected after Need for Speed, and I realized how good people are. Like, there's good people everywhere. As much as I didn't enjoy the EA acquisition and integration as much, they were great people there that I got to work with. Like, small snippet. When I did do NHL, I only did NHL for like 3 months on a small contract because it was in between jobs, and it was Marnie and Victoria. Not Victoria. What the hell's her name? Anyway, they pinged me and said, "Oh, come on, work on FIFA for a while." And I went and interviewed with them, and then NHL just sent me a contract, and that's just because of the good people that were at EA and and the and the and the and the relationships you make, right? So that's just that. I'm sure. I think last time at EA, I ended up with that. Last time I was in Vancouver, so I live in Montreal now. Last time I was in Vancouver, I went to a house party at a friend's house, and a bunch of old Black Box guys showed up, and it's just like we were working together, the day before. I'm sure everybody here has friends that you don't talk to that much, but you can have a beer with or a coffee with any day. And it's weird when you're in that sort of environment, especially a black box, when we just worked all the time, and that's like your friends. You had dinner with them, you had breakfast with them, you went out partied with them, you become super super close. And I think that sticks for the rest of your life, honestly, because I don't think I've ever had a team like that before. Luckily, I had a small team on Rainbow Six. I just worked on a project called Real Blast, which I mentioned before, construction team. We were a very small group, so we're still tight knit. But other than that, I mean, the dev industry, the game industry now, like, they'll bring teams together, but they're so large and they don't last very long, unfortunately. People move on quickly. People are looking for the next paycheck, so it's just different times.
Very different team.
I was gonna ask Brendan, since you mentioned Rainbow Six, by any chance, have you met Chase Strait?
What's his name? Who? What?
Chase Strait.
Strait.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Che?
Chase,
Chase.
like
CH
chasing, Chase.
Chase? Chase
Strait.
as in
Strait.
chasing?
Yeah,
Chase
Chase.
Straight.
Like, yeah, I believe he was like one of the community developers.
The community manager.
No, probably
The
Yeah, community
probably not. I
manager.
mean,
Yeah,
it depends. Let's see, Chase
yeah,
Straight. So I worked on
yeah. He worked on Rainbow Six
in
as well,
Cyprus
and I think so. Yeah. But yeah, he
for
worked on
years
Rainbow
too.
Six, and later on, he actually worked on Need for Speed Unbound. Um,
No, I don't
uh,
think I ever. Actually, I kind of recognize him. I'm looking at his LinkedIn right now. But no, I don't have a personal relationship with him. I was closer to the other community manager, Rainbow Six and Dead by Daylight, was Genevieve Forget, who is now the GM for the local Microsoft Studio Compulsion Games. So I knew her quite well, but I didn't know the other community managers. Again, I was on Rainbow Six. I only worked on Rainbow Six, but I worked on the Real Blast team with the technology group, which actually wasn't on the Rainbow Six team. So the tech group at Ubisoft, we did sit with the Rainbow Six team most of the time. Tech group itself had its own building. It was basically at Ubisoft Montreal. This tech group, if anybody doesn't know here, it has its own space, and they do like plugins, and third party uh, parts of other projects. So like Rayman will contract the tech art group. Ubisoft's so big that they contract their own studios to do things, right? EA is very similar in many ways. Like you could work on a project EA Canada and contract a team out of EA Florida to do a small snippet, right? So Ubisoft worked that way. Is that again a project at Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed would say, "Oh, we need a multiplayer solution. Let's go to the tech group." The tech group would have some sort of plugin, or audio, cinematics, anything like this, right? So I was part of the Real Blast team. When I joined, there was me and 6 programmers. I think we grew to like 12 or 13. But I stayed there we shipped version 1, and then I did 2 DLCs or 3 DLCs. I have the patches for them, and then I ended up leaving. I mean, I find it very difficult, at least back then, to be in a corporate structure like that for too long. It's why I left EA. It's why I left Ubisoft. Now I'm with a very, very large corporation, and I'm very happy where I am. Like I'm not moving. Too old to move anymore. I'm not moving anymore. I'm happy. So
Nice. Anyways, final question that Scott picked, and then we move into the Discord channel. So, Azim, not me, Azim, he or they or she, they asked, I wanted to ask, what do you think about modern racing games and Need for Speed titles? What do they do well, and what do you think they're missing compared to the older games?
Oh, yeah, that was basically after Underground 1, I kind of stopped playing them because you tend to get annoyed with the game that you've been working on for 3 years. And I don't like the narrative in Underground 1 or any of the games, and it just got worse. I just want to pick a car, a track, and go race. So they dropped me as being a fan. I prefer Blur from Bizarre Creations. I love that game to death, and I love Wreckfest. Like I like those cars, those kind of games.
We'll have to do
Blur
a breakfast
mentioned.
session.
Blur
Yeah,
mentioned.
Blur is picking up a lot of fans nowadays. I did play it. I didn't generate anything to me, but many people like it, and I just don't judge them. Honestly.
Yeah, Blur and Wreckfest they're both really good shouts.
Yeah,
I
split
like them
second
both.
in time is Blur, but I preferred Blur. And
yeah, I
actually,
can talk to this.
right now on mobile, I'm really really liking a game called Hot Slide, if anyone plays that. That's a lot of fun.
Okay, so here's
I also repeat. Sorry, I just jump in. I also repeat what Scott said. Like, I was a huge fan of Need for Speed. I was very lucky to start my career with Need for Speed. That was the first game I ever bought with my own money when I was a teenager. Was Need for Speed on PC. But it just got, I don't know, after working on it for so long, and the way they changed the direction, it just wasn't my type of game anymore. And even when I was a kid, I played. I brought it up in another conversation, but NASCAR from Papyrus, IndyCar from Papyrus, Motocross Madness, Monster Truck Madness, Destruction Derby came up in a conversation. Carmageddon, Quarantine. Like, these are games that are 20, 30 years old now. But yeah, I haven't played. When I started getting into VR gaming a little bit because it's fun. You know, there's cool things. I like flying spaceships, so like Star Wars and stuff. So I did try, you know, some of the what is it, Leto Corsa or whatever it is. Played a little bit of that in VR and stuff. And then I tried Dirt Rally, but it made me sick. So I don't currently play any racing games either.
Yeah, for me, it's I just don't see. I haven't played a racing game since. I can't remember what the name of that was. It was on PlayStation 3, and it was MotorStorm. That's it. That was like the last racing game that was like super exciting to me. Like, you just felt like you're going fast, and it's crazy. And there was no, sure, characters had backstory, but it wasn't like a character story game. I was really not into that with the Undergrounds at all. And believe me, playing the Undergrounds, which I did love playing, they were great, but at any moment, I could skip the story crap. That, yeah, gone. I really dislike that stuff. And I don't like any racing game that tries to cram that stuff in there. I'm not there to watch a story or watch a movie. I'm there to go really fast in a car. And that's what I like out of racing game. And I still don't see that a lot these days.
To
Russell and
me,
I do have post racing dev history as well. We also the last project Russell and I worked on together was racing. Was not Need for Speed. It was Full Auto 2 Battle Lines for the PSP. I don't know if anybody
You
played
actually
that.
worked on that? You
I
actually
think I
worked on
remember
that?
Fallout. I think I
Yeah,
remember
that's
Fallout.
crazy. I played it a lot as a kid. I much preferred it over the mainline console versions. That's crazy to hear that someone else that you actually worked on it.
And that was actually really hard because PlayStation Portable was a miserable platform to develop on.
I feel sorry for the testers.
Also,
Well, you got to play your game 24 hours or 8 hours a day holding this thing here.
let's see.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, the guys who play tested on PSP, but I think you have like a mini box that has attached to a PSP, and that boxes projects to the TV. So your PSP works as a controller, and then everything is done by the UMD unit. I think that's how it works. Could it be?
I've had the luxury of never having done a PSP title. I've done GBA though.
Well, moving forward with the AMA. Now we're here in the Discord channel. Here's one question called War Building, asked by Thulim9816. He says, across the different entries from Porsche Unleashed to Most Wanted, what would you say was key to creating or communicating either between players or fellow colleges the different tracks in those games?
Well, Porsche was basically the tracks were designed before I got there, but they were just built on the similar style to the previous titles, like High Stakes and Hot Pursuit 1. Hot Pursuit 2 obviously had to use Hot Pursuit 1 as its inspiration, so that's why they're very similar. Underground was the first time we had a city track. So for me,
And they weren't loaded maps either. It was, you had one giant city. It wasn't like different locales. We had different neighborhoods, but it wasn't like you had desert and then you had a rainforest and then you had, tropical. There was none of that. It was just one big giant city.
yeah. So my main inspiration was actually Project Gotham. Those kinds of games, like they were city-based tracks, so we looked at those. But it was also trying to make tracks that were fun, like Hot Pursuit 2, in a tighter city. So we're trying to get that style, but in a tighter city. And it's easier to do because you don't have hypercars to deal with. Like even the fastest Nissan Skyline is not going to be a Hayabusa or a Huar, however you say the Koenigsegg cars, those things. Like most Hot Pursuit 2 cars are always going to be faster.
Well, it's funny you should say it was easy. Making it one big city with the memory limitations and all that of PlayStation 2 was quite a challenge. Like,
Yeah.
holy cow. I don't know,
And
is anybody familiar with like a top-down map of the underground 1 or 2 cities?
yeah.
Like, has
And
anybody noticed the
when we,
plate of spaghetti?
You mean
and it got
the
worse
map?
because
Yeah.
when they wanted to make the whole city wet, that meant we had to have reflections everywhere. And back in those
Yeah,
days, the reflection was literally the same building upside down under the world, which meant your play
yeah,
count instantly went up. It was
yeah.
technically a pain in the ass. Hot Pursuit 2 was a lot
Yeah,
easier.
it was crazy because yeah, it was just like, and it was night and day. Like, yeah, there was lots of humming and hawing. Like, oh, we can't, like, we can't have it wet. But then when you saw it, it was like, there is a reason why they wet the roads in movies and stuff because it does look much cooler. But man, yeah, that was a technical nightmare. Same with all the work that Wes had to do on those interchanges. Like, that's why it looked like a big plate of spaghetti. We couldn't just model real world freeway off ramps and exits because that just wouldn't work at those speeds. So you had to extend them out. And lo and behold, you wind up with this multi-layered plate of spaghetti. And yet all our technology for like rendering regions and whatnot was 2D based. So now we have to figure out a way to make it 3D based to accommodate all these multi-layered roads. And we only had 9 months to do it.
It was definitely the
That's
hardest design task I've ever done for tracks, that's for sure.
that's just insane. 9 months and you have so much technology to like figure it out. Ah,
Yeah.
what a headache.
And everything's so trivial nowadays. Like I've been using Unreal for 10 years, the last 10 years or so, since Rainbow Six and every project, and everything's so a lot more trivial than it used to be. Like you just put overlap 2 roads and then it's gonna work. Where on Need for Speed, like they had to create custom physics engines, physics tech to make sure that all that stuff worked. I mean, I remember more of that stuff being an issue on the PSP, but I mean, everything in Need for Speed back then was like new tech. We, in fact, we did a lot of, since we're a Canadian developer, there's a government program here called Shred, which basically you submit for money back from the government for technology innovation, and we did a lot of that. And I wasn't much on that side. I mean, I just did pulled vertices and stuff, but I know Russ was involved, and I know the engineers were involved quite heavily in that stuff. Everything was like a technological innovation. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was funny because there was really no space or no exemption for art, so we kept crafting ways to make art sound like it was actually engineering.
Well, here's the most popular question. It has 76 replies to it, but it's done by MS 2008. And it's a very, very specific question. It says, in the demo version of Most Wanted for the PlayStation 2, there was some cool stuff in the game that had been removed from the final release. That is, fire from blowing up gas stations, remove voice lines of cops getting hit by the car, Rock has a blacklist, busted scenes, different camera tilt inspired by Underground, functioning police scoreboard in free mode, drift mode, and then remove voice lines, and then game modes. It's like, why?
I don't know anyone's going to know that because Russ left before
Yeah,
the end.
I don't think anybody in here was that involved in Most Wanted. Like I worked on Most Wanted for the whole thing, but I just did behind the scenes technical art. And I'll tell you the truth, I was largely checked out by then. I had planned to leave. Russ had left. Other people I was closest to had left. EA had largely taken over. There were some very odd. There was
I can
very odd, and I won't get into it here. I don't want to be negative. There's some very odd political conversations. Like as any if anybody works in a corporation here, it gets into politics and stuff. I won't get into it, but like I just wasn't. I did my job, but I wasn't really interested. I wasn't as invested as I was in earlier projects. And yeah, again, I was on that team on the ship, but I left just I think just as Carbon was starting to move. So I really have no idea there.
Well, I can stab a guess though. You had definitely don't forget, like me and Phil and Steve and those guys leaving. We weren't the only ones that left. So there were a
Yeah.
bunch of people leaving, and now you had all these people that had been working with the technology that we and those guys developed that are no longer the people that actually made that technology, that now have to work with that
Yep.
technology without us. And 9 months.
So I don't know what, for whatever reason, I got stuck with like starting the new tracks. If that makes any sense, I didn't build the tracks or whatever, but I would start like the foundation of each track. And then I left EA. They were calling me still months later, going, "Hey, can you help us with this?" And I was like, I was laid off, so I was under no obligation to help, and I didn't, because you don't work if you're. Who's it said, the Heath Ledger's Joker says, if you're good at something, never do it for free. So, keep that in mind. But yeah, they had no clue what they were working with. Everybody had left, so I really I really don't know what's going on there. A lot of stuff happened during Wilson. I mean, the team size exploded. We had new consoles. We had the Xbox 360 and the PS3 to work on, or was that PS4? No, PS3, right? And they hired a bunch of Hollywood talent that, some of them were fantastic, some of them sucked. So, like you said, just like with the EA and stuff, it was a lot of politics going on, a lot of moving gears, and yeah, I mean, the best developers that I've ever worked in my life had left, and I was on my way out. So, sorry, guys.
Well, and one of the funny things was, I remember, oh yeah, when we first started Most Wanted, yeah, this will be a drop in the bucket because we can safely assume that this is all going to be nighttime given the success of Underground. And so we're developing everything around nighttime, and then all of a sudden, I don't even know, Scott, do you remember where it came from, where all of a sudden it's day?
I was gone after Underground 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I would
I
have been.
don't know who made that decision, but it had just changed today, just before we left. Not that I don't really care, but man, that created a lot of pain for the people that were left to clean up that mess. Because there's a lot of different stuff going on when you're, at least back in the day, when you're developing between night and day. Because don't forget, back in those days, there was no dynamic lighting. Everything was baked, and usually the textures too. So. Yeah, you couldn't just in those days go, oh, let's do night and day. That just wasn't a decision you could make back then. And yet they
Yeah,
did on Most Wanted.
I mean, a good example is on Need for Speed Underground, we had 3 executive producers. None of them lasted very long. And then eventually Stefan Vessels became the producer. And that was a black box guy. So they finally picked a black box guy. Because the other 3 were
Shout out to
EA.
Wessels. Shout out to Wessels. I love what he was actually. He came by, like, he was in my house a few weeks ago. Came by for a visit.
Yep.
A wonderful dude. I love him to death. But I did hear some stories I'd never heard before. That's for sure. And I won't share them here. But
Yeah, and
I concur, by the way. I absolutely concur, and I dine with him on a semi-regular basis to this day. So
We'll get him for a new AMA then. It's like get him in contact. We organize and no new EMA with that guy. The more better, honestly.
It's also interesting, right? If I may butt in, if it's interesting because like everyone says that Most Wanted is like one of the most revered titles in the series. Like even up to this day, even like EA still uses it as basically their Need for Speed mascot.
It's the
Even
benchmark,
like
yeah.
yeah, it's like 2 years ago they had it. They had a real life M3 GTR with the Most Wanted livery. So yeah, and then just hearing everything that's like basically a lot has gone to shit.
It's
In the
basically
background, it's insane.
these games are literally just like miracles because you have no time, have to develop a lot of stuff. Things change in the middle of the development. It's like they were miracles. Like they were just like this away from not happening, and that is insane.
Three
These games
three
made us,
executive
like,
producers for Underground 1 is insane.
yeah, it's
and you
it's
remember
insane.
I will agree with the miracle sentiment, because the team that we had back then was unbelievable. Like I've never even seen anything close to that before. Like the level and speed of iteration was just, I can't even explain it. I don't even know how we did it. Lots of coffee, lots of beer, I guess. I don't know. Like it was just a whirlwind.
well, I could,
I even when I tell people, like, again, these two guys are a little older than me, but you know, I was lucky to see the last 2 or 3 years of like the wild west of game development with Black Box before it turned very structured and corporate, and it was an
And you
incredible.
Well,
gotta
yeah, what it was, I don't know if these terms are still used before, but I would say the common paradigm for development in games was waterfall management. So basically, everything comes to a head and then blah. So nobody sees anything until everything's ready to be seen. Whereas Black Box, like, and that was how BioWare was. And then I come to Black Box, and Black Box was no iteration, man. You get stuff in and you get it in now, even if it's broken. We'll figure it out. We'll get it fixed. But you get stuff in and you get it in fast, and we want to play it immediately. So that was the first place I worked where like instant integrate or iteration was commanded of us, and that was kind of part of the clash with when EA took us over. Was EA was still waterfall, so everybody kept things all private and to themselves until they felt it was ready to present. Where Black Box said, "No, you show it right now. You get that ribbon in there. I don't care if there's textures or nothing. I want to be driving that ribbon right now."
And you have to remember that that 9 months means you ship a game that works with no bugs. There is no day one patch. Only
Yeah,
the
that's the
PC,
idea.
because PCs had issues with drivers and stuff, so you're always patching the PC version. The consoles, no day one patch. PS2 didn't have that ability. GameCube, nope. Xbox One, maybe. But it had to work. These days, publishers are lazy. They ship a game and then they've got another few weeks to fix the bugs for day one patch.
They even give you the day one patch release date before they release a game nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah, games are a lot
Yeah,
different. My favorite time was working on cartridges. You had to nail it. It had to be right the first time. That's why the biggest company that I admire is Nintendo. They've always been like that because they've always been cartridges or DVDs. They don't have a PC-based console. Now
the
they do.
unorthodox, the unorthodox, the always contrarian to the consumer market in general. Well, here's some.
You
Yeah,
have
sorry.
friends that bring out the Nintendo console, right? You don't bring out the PlayStation. You want to play fun games, you get the Wii out.
Well, yeah, that
There's been a few recurring questions about the car list, what cars made it in, what cars did not make it in. Do you guys have any insights on how the cars are chosen, or how the cars are not, or how the cars are chosen to be excluded? Or what decision, did you guys have any input, for example, on what cars made it into, say, Underground 1 or Porsche Unleashed or
Yeah,
Hot Pursuit 2?
yeah. I picked the cars for Porsche, Hot Pursuit 2, and Underground 1. The only cars I was asked to add were the Holden and the Ford TS50, but since they have V8s, I didn't object.
So so can you give an insight on like what especially because you did not have a lot of you did not have a lot of time and a lot of options. Like, I mean, not a lot of slots for cars. How did you choose them correctly? Because
Well, yeah, it's
20 years
basically,
on, like people still talk about like Underground 1 for being such a perfectly curated car list, because like every car fits there. Every car fits the theme. So how did you come up with such a car list like that?
you pretty much answered. Like they have to fit the theme, right? So you don't put a Mini in Hot Pursuit 2. Hot Pursuit 2 is exotics. So you know that kind of stuff. But what I did do for Hot Pursuit 2 is because I'm a European, I put in European cars. So Opel Speedster VX220 and the Lotus Elise, they're pretty much exactly the same car in real life. So 3 models and 1 physics model, slightly tweaked, get you 3 cars. And I just like those cars, so I wanted to put them in. I'm a Dodge guy, so the Viper had to go in. You know, it's about coming up with a car selection that's a good balance. Porsche was fairly easy because it's based upon the 3 eras of the cars. And obviously when you're racing Porsches
And
against
by the way,
the
in my
356A and B,
opinion, the Viper was the best physically feeling car in Hot Pursuit 2.
yeah, but the Miata was the best car in Underground. Any rear-wheel drive car is going to be better, mostly because that's the one I tune the most.
Speaking of underground car list, there's a lot of people saying that for underground, there was almost a Mini Cooper in there because there were some strings and
Nope.
some. No.
No, the Mini, and I had no intention to put the Mini in there. It didn't fit, not at the time.
And what about, for example, one guy that says, like, why do you have the Neon in this game, and why do you don't have an SRT4 in this one? Why do you don't have a 22V or no, stuff like that? It's like, why is that?
Okay, so I guess here's one of the biggest difference. In Underground 1, it's supposed to be the car that you're building. I'm not going to give you the SRT4 because it's already a cool car. I'm going to give you a shitty Neon, and you got to make it cool. But in Underground 2, you got the SRT4. So why would I customize that? You're better off starting as $500 car that's base and putting in a bigger turbo, putting in a bigger engine, putting your paint on, putting your body kit on. You don't want to start with an SRT4. You're paying 40 grand and you're going to basically take 20 grand off the car. Didn't make sense. So it had to be the base cars, and then became your car.
It's such a refreshing mentality because, like, in a lot of modern games, they stuff the highest trims of cars for just to have them. So that's a very interesting. That's a very interesting.
Yeah, like even Need for Speed is guilty of this nowadays. It's like the Impreza, for example, in Underground 1, you have the base level 2.5 RS front wheel drive. You know, you can at the time you could probably buy it on a dealership brand new and then modify it.
Subarus are
Yeah.
all-wheel drive, all of them except the
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, but you had the 2.5 RS, just a basic Impreza. And then in the Unbound, they added the limited version of a GC8, which is like
It's
kind
like
of
for
it's like
200 maybe.
yeah, around like 200 units worldwide, and then you also have like limited Type R's, exclusive series Porsches that don't sort of make sense in a game about customizing cars. So yeah, that's an interesting insight on the selection of the cars in the underground.
Yeah, Underground was easy. I mean, the Skyline and the Supra were going to be the two best cars in the game. Easy.
Right.
And
There wasn't
the cars you
there
can
was an
afford.
interesting there is an interesting sidebar to this though, as opposed to when you're talking about the differences between the underground and Hot Pursuit. In Hot Pursuit, they had very strict limitations on what we could do to the cars. Like Ferrari was not going to allow us to have a car upside down on fire. So that was a no-go, which meant that if, well, we can't do that with Ferrari, then we can't do that with any car. And then BMW had just introduced this new window technology, so we were not allowed to break, crack, or shatter windows on BMWs, which meant, well, then we can't really do that for any car now, can we? Whereas on Underground, it was almost like the manufacturers of those cars, I think they just didn't know what the consequences of letting us do whatever we wanted with the cars when it came to damaging them.
I think
see.
they were just
I think a lot of the differences though with the Fast and Furious movies, like Hot Pursuit, Need for Speed, whatever, I don't think car manufacturers cared. But once Fast and Furious was so successful, and the car manufacturers started like clamoring over themselves to be involved somehow because they just saw the money signs, so they opened up the gates quite a bit.
the Gran Turismo caused that.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
like
that too, I guess.
don't forget in that era, at the time, but things like NHL and whatnot had to pay to get the accurate advertisements from the boards. And then during that time is when some EA exec figured out, no, it should be the other way around. If they want their ads on our boards or in our stadiums, they're paying us. So that was a big shift. And I remember the marketing nightmare that was Hot or Underground 2, because I remember Underground 2 coming up with systems like, oh, we can charge them more if it's black or white, how many pixels, all this stuff. We could come up with pricing plan for how many pixels does a billboard take up and all this stuff and make them pay. So there was actually artists coming up with the ideas for how they could sell pixels in the game. It was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I
So
You,
remember
you
we
brought
had.
up you brought up the Mini Cooper. I actually remember something like that. I have these flood of memories that coming back to with the Mini Cooper. So between Hot Pursuit 2 and Underground 1, we shortly, prototyped a game called Interceptor, which was supposed to be. Was that between HP2 and Underground 1? Does anyone remember that?
It's
Got
probably what we
Rust?
guys were working on until we actually
And
got
then
down to.
I also for some reason remember some sort of we were maybe do some sort of collaboration with the Italian Job, and that came out around the same time. And I remember something to do with the Mini Cooper. I think I remember one of the card is showing me a Mini Cooper in game. So you guys might not be. There might be flags somewhere for some prototype something. I don't remember how far it went. It'd be cool if we had one of the car guys in here, to talk
Well,
about this.
between Hot Pursuit and Underground, we had played with Fast and the Furious, and because that was even up on the table. I don't know what happened with that deal. And then there was the what did you call it? The one with all the Austin minis?
Yeah, the Italian Job.
The Italian Job, yeah, I remember that one. And don't forget, all of this occurred within that same 9 months that
Oh
Most
yeah, it was
Wanted.
so short.
And yes, you were right, Coho. It was between Underground 2 and Most Wanted was Interceptor, Italian Job, and for a brief moment,
I mean,
Fast and
Interceptor
Furious.
would have been a shift from traditionally for Switch as well, because you were playing the cop and we had gadgets and stuff, and that a lot of that was from like the missiles and stuff like that was going to be expanded at some point. We had like the just like you could lay. Could you do it in Hot Pursuit 2? Could you lay the nails spikes in Hot Pursuit 2? Did you do that, Russ?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we
Yes,
had
yes. And
we
don't
had like
forget your helmet.
gadgets in the Interceptor where the cops could like it drop barrels and shit like fucking Donkey Kong. So stupid, so stupid. Look, we laughed. Okay, we laughed. So like this laugh, we laughed all the time. It was so much fun to make these games. You're right, because as much
Oh
as hard as it was, we were doing stupid shit all the time to see how far we could take it. But I remember like Interceptor, we do like gadgets. We had like the spike strips would like shoot out the front of your car and stuff. And that might be largely also why there's the desert maps. Some desert maps have come up for Underground 1, Underground 2. Like Interceptor was largely desert based, if I remember correctly. So that might have just got blended in because I mean, Speed Pipeline was just a bunch of shit layered on a bunch of shit, right? It wasn't like nowadays where it's a lot more segregated, a lot more archived.
Speaking of like video games, there was a question or many actually. What about like canceled pitches, projects, or prototypes that never went? Like, do you guys have anything to talk about like projects that were thought of, were like prototyped or like disappear, like they never worked on?
Well, we kind of
Of
just covered
Interceptor.
that with Italian Job and Fast and the Furious and stuff like that. But yeah, there was actual work put into them, but nothing ever came of them.
I think Scott, I think one time you mentioned about something Need for Speed Ferrari.
Yeah, so yeah, for basically a Need for Speed Ferrari, I was invited to join the Canadians to work on NFS, and they told me that they were going to make a Ferrari game. So I designed a Ferrari game. But when I got there, they said it's Porsche, and so Ferrari went away. So it only exists in game design doc format, and I have it, and I'm happy to share it if you want to see it.
Sure,
but
share it in the chat.
maybe, or I can just put it. I can pin it later in another channel.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm a Porsche fan. I'm not a Ferrari fan at all. So I was pretty happy. So
Cool.
good to start on Porsche. And if anything, Porsche helped a lot because they were just about to celebrate their 50-year anniversary. So to make a evolution mode was pretty easy.
Here's another question said by Odonata Cinema, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I pronounced that right. Says, why were the racing physics split between the racing and drifting? I guess it's for underground. Why were the physics separated? Was that unable to be to technically combine them both, or? And the second question is like, if you guys were to make an underground game today, what cars will you guys use? So like, first question is like, why were the physics of for racing and drifting separated? If there were technical limitations, and then why, like, what cars will you guys pick nowadays?
Well, I mean,
9 months.
honestly, Russ can probably speak to this as well. But I mean, we are making a racing game. That's like that's the skin of the game. But we're not focused on real time physics. It is an arcade game. Like we want gameplay first, right? What feels the most fun? It's all about feel. That was the main priority. And I'm sure Russ will have more comments on this, but like the racing that we did, Russ mentioned earlier the off ramps and stuff on the highways and Underground One. Like if you have that sort of speed, and you have to create these like fantastic, roads to be able to drive at these speeds and create that kind of fun, it doesn't translate directly to a drifting track, right? So to be able to, the easiest solution at the time with the short amount of time we have is, hey, let's make custom physics for drifting. Don't just try to tune each one to work together. That would take forever.
Well, it was also the fact that the physics on those old systems was really, really intensive. You didn't have like dedicated physics engines like PhysX or any of that stuff. So we were do-it-yourself physics. So to have a physics model that runs both racing and the physics required for drifting, that would have been just probably a no-go on those systems. I'm sure if we had time, we could have figured it out. But again, 9 months, and we had to have two different physics models because trying to have both of them run at the same time was just a no-go, right?
Well, technically it was 3 because drag racing wasn't exactly normal either. You
Oh,
didn't get
drag,
to
right. Yeah, exactly. That was another physics model itself. Yeah.
Drag racing was a rail shooter, was it not? Basically.
Yeah, basically the first month of Need for Speed Underground development was figuring out drift and drag racing. We didn't care about circuits. We didn't even start looking at it. We were just trying to figure those two modes out first. It took about a month.
And if you were to make a new underground game, what cars would you pick?
Oh, a new one? Well, they're all electric cars now, though.
CRX. Mid 90s Honda CRX. That's what I would do. And then maybe a mid 80s Honda Civic. Like just some real ratty cars. That's what I would do.
I think it'd be much more fun to have like, a Ford F-150 or a Dodge Grand Caravan.
God.
No, the Hellcat. The Hellcat Pacifica.
But you just mentioned that you don't want to give them the best cars. You'd have to start with just a bare bones Dodge Charger or Challenger or whatever the Hellcat comes from.
I've driven the bare bones Dodge Challenger. I would not wish that upon anyone.
No, I wouldn't either. They're heavy and sluggish. I also
And
drive an electric car now, so I'm
gotta have a
out of the
V8
game.
or nothing.
Okay, so let me check more questions here. There's so many, and there's so many related to concept art. Someone asked here if the concept art for Most Wanted was post-apocalyptic. That's that's a new one. That's a new one.
What? Concept art on Hot Pursuit 2? I've never heard of such a thing.
Yes, yes, it seemed that Most Wanted originally was going to have some sort of a post-apocalyptic style based on the concept art. Most Wanted, yeah.
We were blowing up gas stations at the beginning of.
Isn't Most Wanted super washed out too? It's like super washed out, so it looks like it's post-apocalyptic anyway.
It just has peace filter on top of it. But that's really it. It's like I never thought.
Yeah, exactly.
The concept
same
of
filter they use in like Mad Max. I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't really deal with concept art until Underground. Underground was very concept art heavy. That's where Marcus came in.
Well, that's when Habib Zagapur showed up and Nilo Rodis, remember?
Yeah, I do.
Habib Zagapur was the art director on the movie Star Wars Episode 1. He did the pod race. So that guy showed up.
So that's why the cameras look so similar to.
And then Nilo Rodis is the concept artist from Star Wars Episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Who put Princess Leia in that awesome outfit in Jabba the Hutt's thing, by the way.
So I won't talk on Habib. I don't know Habib very well. I don't, and I wasn't a super fan. But Nilo, I will say that he's just an amazing person.
He's basically Yoda in real life.
He's basically Yoda in real life.
Exactly, Nilo was Yoda in real life, without a doubt.
Yeah,
He
That's every,
designed
everyone
Princess Leia's
in the party.
bikini. He designed Buzz Lightyear. He designed the Nebulon B frigate from Star Wars, is my favorite ship. He designed Slave One, which everybody knows who Slave One is. If anybody
Yeah.
knows anything about Star Wars, like he's just an amazing dude. I haven't talked to the guy in 20 years, but great
I
So
guy.
know
his technique,
Huge fan.
his Yoda technique was not in how he would answer questions, is how he would ask you questions back at the questions you asked.
Yes, he is Yoda. He gets you to answer the question
Yeah.
without asking you the question. It's amazing.
So since we're talking about like people in EA you worked with, so some of us with no lives have been searching through like the Moby games and for and video game credits. So have you worked with like names such as say